This is a story about a young woman named Sandra Birchmore. She was only 23 years old when her life was tragically cut short. Sandra's case sent shockwaves across the nation, shining a light on the dark side of power and betrayal. On February 4, 2021, Sandra was found dead in her apartment. Initially, her death was ruled a suicide. However, as the investigation progressed, a far more sinister truth began to emerge. Sandra's story began years earlier when she was just a young girl with a dream. At 12, she joined the Stoughton Police Explorers program, designed to introduce young people to law enforcement. It was here that she crossed paths with Matthew Farwell, a 27-year-old police officer and instructor. He was supposed to be a mentor, a guide for these aspiring young minds. However, Farwell's intentions were far from honorable. Farwell began grooming Sandra when she was still a minor, using his position of authority to manipulate her. By the time Sandra turned 15, their relationship had turned sexual, which was statutory rape under Massachusetts law. Despite the illegality, Farwell continued to exert control over Sandra, using his influence as a police officer to keep her silent. Sandra remained trapped in this toxic relationship for nearly a decade. The abuse and manipulation were relentless. Even as Farwell got married and started a family, his hold on Sandra didn't loosen. In late 2020, Sandra became pregnant and confided in friends and family that Farwell was the father. This revelation would have exposed his crimes and shattered his carefully constructed life. The pressure mounted, and Sandra's life was in grave danger. It was a tragedy waiting to happen. On February 4, 2021, Sandra Birchmore was found dead in her Canton apartment. The news of her passing sent shockwaves through her circle of friends and family. The initial ruling was suicide by hanging, a conclusion seemingly supported by the circumstances. However, for those who knew Sandra best, a sense of unease lingered. The suicide ruling simply didn't align with the young woman they knew and loved. Sandra's friends and family couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. They knew her as a vibrant and optimistic person, excited about her pregnancy and future. The idea that she would take her own life, especially at such a pivotal moment, seemed unfathomable. Adding to their suspicions, there was no suicide note found at the scene. They began to question the official narrative, wondering if there was more to the story. Despite the initial ruling of suicide, inconsistencies began to surface, casting doubt over the investigation. Sandra's loved ones clung to these inconsistencies, their hope for the truth refusing to be extinguished. The circumstances surrounding her death began to unravel under closer scrutiny. The pieces of the puzzle simply didn't fit. The fight for justice for Sandra Birchmore was far from over. Years passed, and the pain of Sandra Birchmore's death lingered. Then, in a twist of fate, federal authorities decided to take a fresh look at the case. The inconsistencies that had haunted Sandra's family and friends had not gone unnoticed. A dedicated team of investigators began to meticulously re-examine the circumstances surrounding Sandra's death. They delved into the evidence, seeking answers that had been buried for far too long. As the investigation progressed, a chilling realization dawned. This was no suicide. This was a carefully staged homicide. Surveillance footage revealed Matthew Farwell entering Sandra's apartment building on February 1, 2021. His presence at the scene, combined with suspicions surrounding his relationship with Sandra, placed him squarely in the crosshairs of the investigation. The net was closing in, and the truth was about to be revealed. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Forensic evidence painted a grim picture of what had transpired in Sandra's apartment. The initial assessment of her injuries as consistent with self-harm was proven wrong. The evidence pointed to manual strangulation. The investigation also uncovered a digital trail of guilt, a testament to Farwell's desperation to cover his tracks. Investigators retrieved deleted data, exposing Farwell's web of deceit. The weight of evidence against him was becoming insurmountable. The investigation revealed a disturbing truth, implicating others within the Stoughton Police Department. Matthew Farwell did not act alone. His twin brother, William Farwell, was also drawn into the circle of suspicion. Allegations surfaced, painting a disturbing picture of a brotherhood of silence. William, too, had engaged in an inappropriate relationship with Sandra, taking advantage of her vulnerability. The lines between right and wrong had become blurred. The investigation uncovered a troubling pattern of abuse within the Stoughton Police Department. Robert Devine, a supervisor, was also implicated in the scandal. Devine had engaged in an inappropriate relationship with Sandra while she was still a teenager. The scandal now encompassed a wider circle of individuals who had used their positions to manipulate and control Sandra. The scandal sent shockwaves through the town of Stoughton, leaving residents reeling from the betrayal. The lawsuit accused the town of fostering a culture of abuse and silence within the police department. It alleged that their actions had enabled the exploitation of Sandra Birchmore and potentially other victims. The lawsuit sought not only financial compensation but also a reckoning. In the wake of the scandal, the Stoughton Police Department faced intense scrutiny. The department vowed to cooperate fully with the investigation and implement sweeping reforms. However, for Sandra Birchmore's family and friends, the pain of her loss remained raw. They vowed to continue their fight for justice, to ensure Sandra's story served as a catalyst for change. The road ahead would be long and arduous, but they were determined to see it through. Sandra Birchmore's story echoed across the nation, its tragic details dominating news cycles. The case struck a nerve with people from all walks of life. Social media platforms buzzed with outrage, sorrow, and a collective demand for justice. Hashtags bearing Sandra's name trended nationwide, amplifying the voices of those who refused to let her story be forgotten. The nation's fury showed no signs of abating. The public outcry morphed into a collective demand for tangible action and systemic change. Petitions calling for stricter oversight of police mentorship programs garnered hundreds of thousands of signatures. Advocacy groups rallied for stronger legal protections for victims of sexual abuse and grooming. The demand for justice for Sandra Birchmore became intertwined with a broader movement demanding police reform. The call for change echoed through the streets and across the digital landscape. Sandra Birchmore's case exposed a deeper societal wound, a reckoning with the uncomfortable truth about power dynamics. The public outrage extended to the systems and structures that allowed such abuse to flourish. The call for reform went beyond law enforcement, encompassing a broader examination of power dynamics within various sectors. The case ignited a national conversation about consent, accountability, and the importance of believing survivors. The public outcry served as a catalyst for a broader reckoning, a call to action to dismantle the systems that perpetuate abuse. The seeds of change began to sprout, offering a glimmer of hope in the midst of tragedy. Lawmakers introduced legislation aimed at strengthening protections for victims of sexual assault and holding abusers accountable. Departments across the country faced increased scrutiny, their policies and practices re-evaluated. The conversation about power, consent, and abuse became louder and impossible to ignore. The fight for justice for Sandra Birchmore continued, a testament to the enduring power of one voice, amplified by the collective will of a nation demanding change. As of today, May 24, 2024, Matthew Farwell sits in a federal prison cell awaiting trial. His days are marked by the cold, unyielding walls of his cell, a stark contrast to the life he once knew. The weight of the charges against him, the weight of Sandra Birchmore's death, the weight of his betrayal of his oath and his community, all rest heavily on his shoulders. Each passing day, the gravity of his actions becomes more apparent, a constant reminder of the irreversible choices he made. The justice system, often criticized for its slow and cumbersome processes, is now the only path to answers, to accountability, and to a semblance of closure for Sandra's family and friends. They wait with bated breath, hoping that the wheels of justice will turn in their favor, bringing some measure of peace to their shattered lives. The trial, expected to begin later this year, will be a painful reminder of the events that led to this point, a public airing of the darkest secrets that haunted Sandra's life and ultimately led to her untimely death. It will be a time of intense scrutiny, where every detail will be examined, every action questioned. The prosecution, armed with a mountain of evidence painstakingly gathered over years of investigation, will present a compelling case, laying bare the depths of Farwell's deception and the brutality of his crime. They will seek to paint a vivid picture of the events, leaving no stone unturned in their quest for justice. The defense, tasked with representing a man facing the possibility of a life sentence, will likely employ every legal strategy at their disposal, seeking to cast doubt on the prosecution's case, to find inconsistencies, to humanize their client in the eyes of the jury. They will argue that the evidence is not as clear-cut as it seems, that there are nuances and complexities that must be considered. The courtroom will become a battleground of narratives, a high-stakes drama where the truth, elusive and often subjective, will be the ultimate prize. Each side will present their version of events, hoping to sway the jury to their perspective, knowing that the outcome will have profound implications for all involved. Regardless of the trial's outcome, Sandra Birchmore's story will forever be etched in the annals of history, a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the profound impact one individual can have on the collective consciousness of a society. Her story serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked power and the urgent need for reform within institutions entrusted with protecting the vulnerable. It is a call to action, urging us to confront the systemic flaws that have allowed such tragedies to occur. Her tragic death has ignited a national conversation, prompting a long overdue examination of the systems and structures that allowed such abuse to flourish. Communities across the nation are coming together, united in their demand for change and justice. Law enforcement agencies across the country are facing increased scrutiny, their policies and practices re-evaluated through the lens of transparency and accountability. This scrutiny is not just about addressing past wrongs, but about building a future where such abuses are impossible. The public, once content to place their trust blindly in those wearing a badge, are now demanding more. They are demanding transparency, accountability, and a commitment to protecting the vulnerable, regardless of their age, gender, or social standing. This shift in public sentiment is a powerful force for change. The movement for police reform, fueled by Sandra's story and countless others like it, is gaining momentum. Advocates are pushing for comprehensive changes aimed at addressing systemic issues within law enforcement, from recruitment and training to oversight and accountability. These reforms are essential for restoring public trust and ensuring justice for all. The seeds of change, sown in the fertile ground of tragedy, are beginning to sprout. They offer a glimmer of hope for a future where justice and equality prevail. As communities continue to rally and advocate for reform, the legacy of Sandra Birchmore will live on, inspiring a movement towards a more just and equitable society. Sandra Birchmore's legacy extends far beyond the courtroom walls, far beyond the headlines and the hashtags that momentarily capture our attention. Her story is a call to action, a powerful reminder that change begins with each of us. It is a reminder that each of us has a role to play in creating a world where abuse of power is not tolerated, where victims are believed and supported, and where their voices are amplified. Justice should not be a privilege but a right afforded to all. We must be vigilant, holding those in positions of power accountable for their actions, speaking out against injustice, and supporting organizations working tirelessly to create a safer and more equitable society. We can honor Sandra's memory by becoming more informed about the issues surrounding abuse of power, by educating ourselves and others about consent, understanding its importance in every interaction, by challenging harmful stereotypes and biases that perpetuate inequality, and by advocating for policies and practices that promote transparency, accountability, and equality. Let us not allow Sandra's death to be in vain. Let it be a turning point. Let her story be a catalyst for lasting change, inspiring us to take action, a beacon of hope illuminating the path towards a just and equitable future for all. Together, we can make a difference.